Welcome to another edition of the Nations of Coaches Growth Series, a higher level of play. We're so glad you can join us to learn in this very enriching conversation we're going to have today. At Nations of Coaches, we desire to serve you as you grow in your coaching journey. We want to help you lead like the Master Coach Jesus Christ and guide you and all whom you influence to be impacted for the glory of God. And today we have an amazing guest today, Steph Gaitley, and we're so happy to have her. Thanks for your willingness to join us today, Steph.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited to be with you, Cal.
This is awesome. Hey, Steph, we're going to start before we get into the culture stuff. You have deep roots in basketball. Share with us how deep those roots go.
Oh, well, there's a lot of different roots from that tree. I mean, it starts at home with my older sister started the basketball at our high school, and then in high school, I was a part of myself and my two sisters for the first time in NCAA history. Three sisters played in one game. So then the tree goes out, then you become a player, then you become an assistant, and then you become a head coach, and then the tree grows more with your own players going out into the coaching world. So it's a lot of different branches coming off that tree.
Well, not just your players, but your sons, right? So you're
Yeah.
the
Oh,
mom.
yeah. That's a whole nother tree. I mean, that's probably obviously your most important tree as a mother. So all three of my boys, Dutch being the oldest, DC, the middle one, and Jordan, the third, all three of them have gone into the NBA. Now, DC stayed for 3 years and has started a family. So he's with a company called Speedio now because he wanted to stay in the field of athletics. Dutch has been in the NBA for 10 years, and he started with Coach Popovich, which was an unbelievable start. I mean, absolutely loves Coach, and was there and proceeded to go. Was there 5 years and proceeded to go to Charlotte, and then went from there to Sacramento, and is now with the Brooklyn Nets. And then the youngest one, Jordan, was a Dobo for American basketball, and then went to um, he's with the Phoenix Suns right now. They had a coaching change, so now it's a matter of whether he stays on with the new coaching change or not. But it's been fun getting together as a family because my husband obviously always has some great ideas, and just sharing, whether it be basketball ideas, marketing ideas, people ideas. So it certainly is a family affair.
Yeah, and we can't leave Frank out, as you talked about.
Never.
Your awesome, awesome, supportive husband, who I know is richly involved, which is awesome. So, coaches who are joining us, Steph Gately, if you don't know her, you need to. First of all, she's an amazing person, and I've gotten to know Steph from years back. I met you in like the 90s, early 90s, when I was just a college kid. And what was cool, working the Kathy Rush, the Future Stars camps. And I just remember you impacted me so much. And I didn't even know you at that time, but I got to meet you, and you just were always pouring into the young kids, the coaches. It was just like, man, you were magnetic. So I've always followed your career and have respected what you've done. And you guys out there listening, Steph has 727 wins. Like that's a lot of games. 63% winning percentage. Fifth winningest coach in Division One among active head coaches. 15th winningest coach all time in NCAA Division One history. Second most mid-major wins in any Division One women's basketball coach of all time. 21 postseason bids, 10 NCAA appearances, and now Steph at FDU. You you made some history this year, right? Best season in program history, NEC title, second in program history, and the first NCAA tournament bid. What made that this year so special?
The people. I think it's the people that made it so special. I mean, that's kind of like why I coach anyway, is like you said, and I thank you for such kind words. But we just had an incredible group of kids that, were not just successful on the court. I mean, they won the sportsmanship award from the fellow coaches. We had the most community service hours. Our GPA is like a 3.6. So it just was an extremely special group. And I think all coaches will say that sometimes you get blessed with, one of those groups. And this year we certainly did.
Well, it was fun to watch. I watched your journey through, and coaches also keep in touch. Steph does some great things on formerly Twitter, on X.
Mhm.
Her, I know, Monday motivation and Two for Tuesdays, and she has some great nuggets of wisdom. So start following her. Um, and Steph, you did all these things while being a mom. And so, what can you tell moms in coaching out there? What encouragement can you give them?
Well, I'm like you had mentioned earlier, I have a great supporter in my husband, Frank. We'll be married 43 years, but I mean, a coach is what I do, but a mom is who I am. So there's obviously going to be, conflicts along the way, but um, to me it's exciting that I think I did a good job when all three boys wanted to go into coaching because they saw such a positive environment around it. And obviously we brought them with us wherever we went because Frank was an assistant with me for a while, but it's certainly been, a family thing. And for the other coaches out there, yes, can you do it? Does it take support? Absolutely. I had my mom and my mother-in-law were great supporters when I needed the help as well. So I think if you have a great supporting cast, anything is possible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So today we're going to talk about developing culture. And in my eyes, you are a master at that. I mean, you've won every place you go, and you don't do that without consistency and a strong culture. So we're going to learn from you today. And with the landscape of women's basketball, well, college basketball, the changes, the NIL, the transfer portal, everything that's going on, how important it is to establish your culture in your program.
Well, geez, if you don't have a culture, I don't know if you will be able to be successful. And, I've studied a lot about culture and read a lot about culture and a lot in the last few years. And, one of the things that seems to be the common thread is consistency, being able to do things consistently. Um, when someone asks me, and I've been asked this a few times, like, how do you win everywhere you go? What's the magic thing? And it's not a magic offense, it's not a magic defense, it's how you treat people. So to me, one of the main things of culture is honesty, and because I don't think you can build trust unless you have honesty. And I think how you treat people. Um, I think it's all the things off the court that are part of culture, and then doing them every day. Being consistent with that, letting the kids know you care. That you care more about them than actually what goes on the court. That I am always checking in with them, even now when we have breaks before we see them. How you doing? What's going on? Not really even about basketball, about life. And then just getting kind of a pulse check with them, when the season starts, taking them out and sitting with them and see how the summer went and what's going on with life. And the more time I think you spend with them as people, I think the more time you'll see your success begin to build on the court.
Yeah. Mm. It's all about the people. So when I say the phrase program culture, what does that mean to you?
Program culture, honesty, trust, communication, love, caring, uh, teamwork, and it's doing things all together. Like the one thing that I've grown a lot as a coach is um, really incorporating what the kids are feeling. Like, example would be like as you go through a long season, fatigue sets in and your captains are basically an extension of you. And so I really rely on them. And if they come to me and say, "Hey, listen, coach, we have a leg day today and our legs are killing us," I'm like, I'll go to the strength coach and say, "Listen, I can we back off and do something different today, maybe a stretch." So um, I just think making it a two-way street, which I think maybe back in the day, a lot of coaches might have made it a my way or highway type thing, and it's a one-way street. So I think in order for it to work, I think it has to be a two-way street.
Mm. What are 3 or 4 standards you have in your culture at FDU, and how does your faith play a role in developing these standards?
Faith is an interesting thing because it's obviously a huge part of my life. For me, what I say to the kids up front in regard to my faith first is, guys, faith and family are the two most important things in my life. Everybody has a different opinion about faith. I'm going to bring it forth, but you can choose to be a part or not be a part. What I mean by that is like when I was struggling with I was going through with my sister, or if I have somebody going through something, we'll kind of unite and hold hands in prayer. But as a team, and if I'm going through something individually with a player, I want to get a sense of their faith before I can kind of tell them how to kind of help them deal with what they're dealing with. I had a player when I coached at St. Joe's that said she didn't believe in God, and that was a hard struggle for me because I don't know how you get through your day, without believing in God. And so I said to her, well, that's what gets me through everything is God, and that's what brings me peace, and that's my kind of guide on everything I do. So um I'm hoping in that conversation I kind of let her believe that she needed to believe in something,
Mhm.
and so and the one thing I found more this year was how important God and prayer was to kids. And so one of the things I brought up to a couple of the kids, it was adding a prayer group next year, doing something to unite them with that. um but how we bring it along is, I think of the things that was important to God, obviously, is how you treat people, and that's number one to me. So I think if you're honest with people, I think honesty is like the core of who I am. Like everybody in my family knows, Steph doesn't lie. Like I just don't lie. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna make up something. I'm not gonna say I was somewhere I wasn't. It's just not who I am, and I'm kind of forthright right in the beginning with the team. Like honesty is number one with me. If I'd rather deal with, what does they say? They're just saying something like your worst lie is better than the worst truth is better than the best lie. And
Mm.
I think, and I read somewhere, one of the things when my oldest son Dutch did a project with my husband on leadership, he sent a letter out to all major sports coaches, like Major League Football, I mean NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA, hockey, and all coaches, that anybody that made the Hall of Fame and anybody that was in that NCAA tournament in 2004 when he was in high school. And we put a book together with all those letters of leadership. And I remember specifically in Mike Krzyzewski's was, in order to have trust in your program, it starts with being honest.
Mhm.
You have to be able to accept being honest. And then when you have honesty, you build trust. And then when you build trust, you can build your family. So like, but that's our number one word in our program is family, and it's pretty consistent, and it's kind of cliche because everybody says it, but um, I really think we do that. I really think that's has a lot to do with our success. So um, I mean, obviously on and off the court communication's key, but to me it's caring for one another, having honesty with under one another, trusting one another with one another. That all kind of segues into your culture, but culture is something that you do every day. It's not something you can bring when you feel like bringing it. It's something you need to bring consistent every day. Your effort, your attitude has to be consistent every single day. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what culture is, and I've thought about that long and hard. Like, what is culture? When people say culture, and so I studied a little bit, and nobody has one specific thing. The only specific thing I've heard is doing it consistently, whatever you're
Mhm.
doing. So we consistently try to get the kids to tell the truth and to trust in each other and to believe in each other. And then comes from there is communication. And if you think about it, those are all part of being part of a family.
Yes, and I just saw a shirt the other day a coach had on with her team, and it said, culture doesn't graduate." So that
Mm-hmm.
consistency, right? It's who your program is.
Yeah,
It's what you do daily,
right.
whether it's
Exactly.
this group or the next group. So good stuff. How about, who were some key coaches and leaders you learned from as you developed the culture standards you have implemented?
It's interesting. My early mentor was his name was Dick Hart. He was a high school, and this was back when I was a player, and he he was the high school coach at Monsignor Bonner, who coached my college coach, Harry Peretta.
Mm,
And so Mr. Bernhardt, wasn't married, didn't have any kids, and so he lived the game of basketball. So he had an early impact on me. And um, so he was more of the X's and O's and kind of calming me down as a young coach. And then as I became to grow as a coach,
mm,
the coaches that had the immediate impact on me was Pat Summitt. And I always idolized her. I just thought that she stood above everybody. And I remember going down in the early 2000s with my college coach, Harry, to spend a few days with Pat at her like pool house. And and then they were getting ready for a foreign tour. And I remember going in and all I thought about with Pat was discipline, discipline, discipline. And I went in and I saw kids having like their hair hang down or different things going on that I didn't anticipate. And I asked her about it. I said, "Oh, how do you feel about these certain things?" And she said, this is one thing I really admired about her was she wanted to learn from other people, like her new assistants, like culturally speaking. If she had a black assistant, she wanted to know culturally, where do I need to be better? And thought, wow, that is so critical to growth, is really understanding each individual for who they are and what they bring to your
yeah.
team. And so that was really eye-opening to me. And I loved how she wanted my opinion on things. Like it didn't matter what level you were, what age you were, she wanted you to know wanted to know what you thought as well. So
Mm,
just seeing how her players respected her and
mm.
how hard they played for her, maybe you wanted to be like her.
Well, and just what you just said, she's asking your opinion and is going, well, do we as coaches ask our players, give them a voice and help them to build and grow in the program. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Um, what are the strategies that you use to implement and sustain your culture?
It's funny. I took a year off a couple years ago when my mom passed and my sister got sick and my assistant coach passed all within 2 weeks. And I coached my high school team. And it was just such a revealing time for me, like just back to the innocence of that age group. And the one thing I found out from talking to those kids was just the time we spent doing bonding. We did like a sleepover. We did a trip to see Villanova play. And then I took that, and I had done this before, but I took my college team, my first FDU team, and we did a retreat down in my hometown of Ocean City. And my staff had never done anything like that. And the team had never done anything like that. And when I talked to those seniors this year and asked them to reflect on their favorite part off the court of their time here, it was that weekend. And
Mm,
so I think it's critical that you really get time to know your players and they get to know each other and your staff. I remember Gino Auriemma said something to me a long time ago when I think I was maybe still an assistant or in my first couple years as a head coach. And we were I think it was his first Final Four, and there was a small group of us because Jim Foster, who I worked under, was very close with Gino. And Gino said so many coaches spend so much time watching tape that they should be using to get to know their players. And I
mhm.
really do believe that. Like, so I try my best to just sit down and talk to my kids. Come on, I have lots of snacks in my office. Come on, like, come on in, let's sit down. What's going on today? How's life?
Yeah.
Um, I think part of building that culture is really getting to know your kids, and and letting them know that it's that you're vulnerable, that you're human, and oh my gosh, I went through that too. I know exactly how you're feeling. Like you're not the only one that's going through that. So I totally understand how you feel. And I think vulnerability is important. I think just putting them in positions where you can really do a lot of team bonding. I mean, a lot of people do the rope exercises and all that, and they're great. Don't get me wrong. I love myself a little escape room, and taking them
Right.
out and doing that. But that weekend was great because we did getting to know me type, exercises. We did, scavenger hunts where you have to rely on each other. And so I think that extra time was critical to building, to, be the building blocks for our success.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good nugget for coaches right now because they have 11 new players, and they say, well, we haven't had time in the portal to get to know our kids. And it's going to take months to do that if you do it in, a minute here, a couple minutes here. So um, that's really good information right there. How do you engage your staff to help with teaching and enforcing your culture?
Well, I think it's really critical as a staff that you're all on the same page. Not to say that you don't have your own opinions, because you certainly want them to share different things. Like at the end of the year, I always sit down with them and go over like, what can I help you with? Or, here's some things you can do better. What are some things I can help you do better? And what can I do better? And so they're obviously a big part of that retreat, and then like this weekend, we'll do a retreat, as a staff. And we'll sit down and we'll talk about not just things on the court, but off the court, like different exercises that we can get to know our players better, whether, some kids are, like to be coached different, and I'm not saying you coddle them. I'm just saying you learn to understand them better. And, I'll have conversations, with coaches, and a big person, whether it be a player or a coach, reprimand in private and praise in public, because I never want to make a coach look bad, but at the same time, I don't want them, if they're harping on one kid that I think has had enough for that day, I gotta let them know that's probably, I think we've probably reached that limit with them.
On the contrary, what are some culture killers?
Oh, geez.
Mm.
Culture killers. I think culture killers, people that are deceitful, that aren't honest. I think lying, and I've had that with kids, and you have to determine as a coach, like if you catch a kid, and lie, and they own up to it that I've lied, So I mean, um, all right, there's consequences to your actions. So like you have to determine on what level and where to, and does it affect just them, or does it affect your whole program? To me, if a kid is doing things that affect more than just themselves, they could be a culture killer. And, whether you're getting feedback from them in the locker room, how they're talking in the locker room, or whether it's their actions of being late, or whether it's, you know, um, I'm trying, like, I had a player on my team this year, and I love her, but there was times that she acted up, and I had to make a point to her, like, you have to understand with me, I would rather win my point than win the game, because I'm going to win more games with my point being made. Because if I think I let the rest of the team think it's okay, you get away with this,
Mhm.
you're not going to be successful. So you need to understand, I'd rather bench you. And I think once you set the tone, I think a lot of coaches are afraid to do that, especially in the newer, oh, they're going to jump into the portal, they're going to transfer. You know what? Guess what? If you're not going to, do the right things, we're not going to be successful. I'd rather have all kids buying into doing the right things than a few really good players that do the wrong things, because at the end of the day, you're not going to have the same success.
Yeah. And when you have challenges, you know you're all in this together
Yeah,
and you're gonna probably come out a little bit more on the higher end than if you're all
absolutely.
together.
Absolutely.
Um, as we mentioned, you're a basketball family and your sons played and now are coaching and in the basketball world. Can you share some things that maybe you've seen them take away in their playing and professional lives?
The one thing I've admired, and I don't know, I mean, you have the girls and I have the boys, but boys are a lot more closed-minded. Like I tried to pull things out of them, and with them it's a little bit difficult to get out of them. When they were players, because girls are quick to be like bah, 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 and
Yeah.
boys are like, hey, listen, get over it, move on, get past it.
Mhm.
And so in seeing them grow from players into the coaching world, I it was I'll never forget this comment that my oldest one said to the youngest one. We were out, I'll never forget where I was at. We were out in San Antonio, and the oldest one, was obviously with the Spurs, and the youngest one was coming up, and and he was younger, and he said to him when he went out for his interview at Vegas for the Vegas Summer League, because that's where the NBA has their summer league. Um, he he was scared because he was young and he had to go meet with these people, and some of the people he had to cold call that he didn't have an interview with, had to go introduce himself, and he said, I felt for the two most awkward minutes of my life I could change my life. So even though you got to step out of that
Mm,
comfort zone of being uncomfortable,
mm,
stepping into that world of being uncomfortable could change your life. So that's one thing we challenge our players with too. But I will tell you one line, and this is a little off the topic what you just said, just because I know, about we talked about fate. My
mhm,
middle son, DC, he said something to me I will never forget for the rest of my life. He was in second grade, and we were sitting in church by ourselves one day, and I said, honey, why do you think God put us on earth?
mm.
And he looks up at me, he goes, Mom, I think it's a tryout for heaven. I was like, oh my God, my heart just dropped. I thought that was the cutest thing ever. I'm like, from taking it from us being around sports all your life, but taking it from a faith thing. And I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. So just to see them, the one thing I always talk to them about is faith and family. It's something that I try to, that, one
Mm.
day when I go to that, go to the sky, that's something that they'll continue now that I'm a grandmom, that they'll continue with their own kids, that, like, keep your faith and put your family.
Wow.
The two, if you have those two things in your life, you're gonna be pretty successful.
Amen to that. And it's like one of the coaches, he coached men's basketball when I was playing at Case, and he would tell me, Gibbs, he said, you're on an interview every day of your life. It was like, yeah, somebody's watching.
So true. Kevin
Somebody's
Easton said
watching.
that. Kevin
Yeah.
Easton, who coached with the Celtics, when I heard him speak, he said, don't forget, every day you're on an interview, somebody is watching what you're doing. And it's so true because I find myself out and thinking, that's somebody I would hire, if something open, who would I look at? It's so true. It's such a great point.
Yeah. Yeah. But I love what your son said though.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, okay. This is the bonus question for our new head coaches. What is your advice to them as they get started?
Wow, it is such a different era of basketball, Kel. I mean, really is. I mean, if I had to go back to the younger version, 25-year-old version of myself, things that I would change would be less is more. You know,
Mm, hmm
I think I tried to do too much, and tried to fill their heads with so much that I confused them. So definitely less is more. And it's so hard to say because I've been talking to our men's coach and he's in the early stages. He's young in the early stages of coaching, and I'm in the fourth quarter of coaching. And I think especially, him feeling that pressure, I gotta win, I gotta get that next contract. And, that's not where I'm at, and yet, you know, I look at, like, for me, when I start before my games start, I have and I've tried to be a mentor to coaches, and I'm in the WBCA, and I love getting involved with the mentoring program, but I have a little picture in my pocket. And then I also obviously have my chain of my sister. I have something of my dad. I have something of everybody, right? But the picture is a picture of the family. And on the back, it's like things are important. And I obviously starts with God and family and goes down
hmm
to the kids. But the end of the thing, it says, regardless of the outcome of today, just be the best person you can be.
hmm
And sometimes I think we get so caught up in what if we lose? What if we lose? And we worry about it. And the thing that brings me great peace, and one of the books that I read every day is that just give it to God every day, and it starts with peace, and he's going to get you through whatever it is. So, like seeing my youngest one, with the coaching change in Phoenix right now, I'm seeing him like struggling with like what's my next step, and I'm like, honey, I know it sounds very cliche, but God will take care of it. Like, you're going to go where you're meant to be,
hmm
so just keep your nose clean, keep doing what you're doing, keep working hard, and things will take care of itself. And when you said what's something I would tell a young coach, it's funny because Dutch told Jordan when he started his job, be the first one there, be the last one to leave, like all these little things they tell you when you start off. I mean, the first 90 days, I think they say. But I would just say get around and meet as many people as you can outside of the department, whether it be admissions or housing, and make yourself people aware of who you are. This is from the external, because obviously you have the internal with your team, but um as far as with your team, I think you need to make sure you understand that they're people first. They're not players, they're people first. So like birthdays, I'm always bringing cupcakes in the day of the birthday of whoever it is, and making sure you always remember them on their special days, and um not forgetting that they're kids. Don't forget that these guys are kids, and you have to laugh and you have to have fun. And also, it's something you and I spoke about. It's okay to show your vulnerability. Like going through losing my sister this year was incredibly hard, and I couldn't do it by myself. And they saw that. They saw how difficult it was, and
Mm,
they were a big part of helping me through it. So, I mean, I think letting them see your real self, that's okay. You don't have to always be stoic and feel like you're unapproachable. Like I try to make sure they understand your office is always open, Take time. The one thing I've seen, I've gone to a couple things this spring, is that, and I've read a lot of things, that the one thing that seems to be common is just take the time every week to really get to know your kids, whether it's just 2 minutes of getting to them before practice, or whether it's bringing them up for a little meeting. Like we started something that which I think has been really good, where we have each coach have an academic team, and they have to come up and meet their academic coach, during the week. And so therefore they're getting to see them in a different capacity than just basketball. They're more than just a basketball player, and just really developing the overall person.
yeah. So a couple of things that you said, things that I've learned too. So you you're about being the best person you can be every day. And we're human, right? And we fall. And there are days that, I mean, with my kids, with my husband, with I make mistakes. I screw up. So don't be afraid to apologize. And
Mm.
I think that's the important thing, that even with your team, I think as coaches, it's like, well, you're human. Don't be afraid to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I messed up, because they will respect that, right? They'll appreciate that, and appreciate you for being human, and then knowing that there's grace. And
Oh, that's so true. I've done that. I've gone in after a film, and I'll go in and I'll be like, Bella, I want to apologize to you. When I pulled you out, I thought you missed that box out. That wasn't you, because I want everybody else to know that I'm okay with saying I messed up.
mhm.
So I think that's a great point. I think it's really important as coaches that we're okay with doing that.
Yeah, and you said less is more. And gosh, when I was a head coach, man, I thought if I watched more film, I was going to be able to fix everything. Well, you can watch all the film in the world, but your people are the ones that are performing. So if you want them to perform at their best and give you all they have, you got to pour into them, and you got to get to know them. So coach, if you have to decide, am I going to watch more film tonight, or am I going to take a minute to write a quick note to my kids, or give them an encouragement or something? Um, I, I'd say err on the kids side. Cut off the film, because that's not going to fix it. I I tried. I
Yeah.
tried.
No, I think you're 100% right. Those little notes, I mean, whether the little text messages, whether it's a little note, like I had a bunch of extra copies made of my mom and dad's favorite prayers, and for when it's appropriate, somebody's going through a tough time. Like I had, one of my assistant coaches who's now, at Iona, like she lost her grandmother, but I knew my time with her, how critical her grandmother was to her.
Mm,
So I sent her my mom and dad's prayers, their favorite prayers, and she said how much that meant to her. Like,
mm,
and it was incredible that the impact of something that has, like, even through Lent, like one of the things I decided, besides giving up French fries, I decided during those 40 days when he's searching, like I sent a note out to 40 people and thank them, for what they do in my life. Like just
Mhm.
And I have the kids do that. Thankful Thursday. Let somebody
Yeah.
know that you appreciate them. Like, I think a big part, I think if the coaches can understand that one of our responsibilities is building the overall person and continuing to where the parents left off, you
Mhm.
know, I think those kids, which is one of my goals, is to have them in my life forever, not just 4 years, but 40. Like I saw something on one of my parents sent me a picture of seven of my players from Fordham that got together. It did my heart good to see that they are still united. Like
Yeah.
that culture that we built. And I had the Lehigh coach told me that too. One of my players, when I left Fordham, had transferred there, and she said 4 or 5 of them get together every year as another group. She goes, it's incredible what you've done with those kids because they all get together, but
Yeah.
like-minded, we're very like-minded. I'm kind of a magnet to certain type of things, whether it be, how you treat people or just the heart of a person is so critical to your success.
Yes, absolutely. This has been so rich. So, coaches, I was taking notes while I'm listening because I'm always learning something. But here's a couple nuggets that I took away, and I'm sure you're going to take away more. Without consistency, you can't really develop culture. You have to do it. It's every day. It's what you do every day. Um, some nuggets of keys to culture: honesty. Honesty builds trust. Communication, trust, love. It's all about the people. Build into your people. Um, the team retreat, coaches, I think that is like the time that you can spend with your kids off the court. If you can do that, that's amazing. But love them. Matthew, chapter 22. The greatest commandment: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Love God and love others. And that kind of everything else goes from there, right,
Yeah.
Steph? Um,
Absolutely.
so, Steph, if coaches want to contact you, what would be the best way for them to reach out?
Geez, I'll give you my cell. I mean, I'm an open person. Like, I just feel it's important that we always help each other. 347-531-6418 is my cell. My email, I have personal email, which is svgately@gmail.com. And then my school's email is s.gately@fdu.edu.
Awesome. Coaches, Steph was there for you. I promise you. Um, and again, coaches, thank you for listening. We're going to put those things in the podcast notes, how to get in touch with you. But Steph, a pleasure. I would love to do this again with you anytime that you are willing. We'll pull up
Happy
some
to do it.
topics and talk. But thank you so much. Coaches, we have some great resources for you at Nations of Coaches. Please go to our website, nationsofcoaches.com, and see how we can help you. Check out our growth series. And God bless you. And thank you for all that you do pouring into your kids. Love them and love them well. And go and glorify God in all that you do.